Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zac Waller, the Executive Director of HaYovel and the Israel Guys, and today we're doing another special show that is specifically for all of us Christians who are looking for answers on how our Christian faith should affect our relationship with the land and people of Israel today. So there's a lot going on in the land of Israel right now. Actually, at the time of this recording, Israel's actually at war with Hamas in the south and Hezbollah in the north. And these type of things always bring up a lot of questions for Christians all over the world. And what does this mean for us? What is our role? What is our responsibility? What should our response be as Christians to the modern state of Israel, the land and people of Israel? So I want to start off by going to Genesis chapter 12 in verse 1. It says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So this is a basic thing here right off the bat. After the fall in the Garden of Eden, God is looking for somebody who will partner with him to bring reconciliation, to develop a salvation message. It's something that will bring reconciliation back to mankind. And so he finds Abraham. Abraham is ready to go. And so God tells him, all right, so our plan is this right here in Genesis chapter 12. I'm going to make of you a great nation, and you're going to be a blessing to all the families of the earth. And here in verse 3, some translations say, I will bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you. But those two, where it's translated curse and curse, those two words, is actually a different word in Hebrew. And so I like the way the ESV translated it. It says, I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you, I will curse. That's a little bit more accurate translation from the Hebrew. And so this is a very important thing, right? Because this is God's initial instruction for how his grand master plan of salvation for the world is going to be enacted in the world through Abraham and his descendants, all right? So Abraham and his descendants are given a role. They're going to bring light into the world. They're going to kick off a movement that's going to help mankind come back to a relationship with God like it was in the Garden of Eden. So this place of blessing Israel is critical in this whole bigger picture. All right, so then the question is how? How do we bless Israel? There's a lot of different ideas out there about how we should do that. So I've come up with an acronym for how I think is the best way for Christians to engage with Israel and to come in and bless the land and people of Israel. And the acronym is HUGS, all right? HUGS, HUGS. And so the acronym is humbly, unload, give, and serve. All right, so we'll start off with humbly. If you're not familiar with Christian Jewish history, I strongly encourage you to go back and do research on that. You know, when I first came into Israel, I was totally clueless and embarrassingly clueless about the history between Jews and Christians. But when I came in here and started interacting, especially with the Orthodox Jewish community, I quickly realized that there was a major thing here that I was totally unaware of. One day, my older brother Braden and I were riding in a bus from Ariel out to one of the vineyards that we were working in, and we started a conversation with the Orthodox Jewish man on the bus. And so he'd been to ask us questions, why are you guys here? What are you doing? Who are you? And so it came out that we were Christians and we're here to bless Israel. And he just got this look of consternation on his face, like, well, wait a second, you're Christians and you're here to bless Israel? He said, the only thing I know about Christians is the stories that I heard from my grandfather in Lithuania, where Christians would come, especially on the Christian holidays, and pull people out in the streets, beat them, do all kinds of horrible things to them. And he said, so you're Christians and you're here to actually bless, to actually support Israel? And so we were like, wow, how do you even respond to that, right? Although we knew about Christianity is, okay, no, Christians love people. Christians take care of people. Christians, are supposed to be Christ-like. They're supposed to, do things that are loving and that kind of thing. But we realized that a lot of things had been done in Jesus' name, in Yeshua's name, that were very much not Christian things, or how we saw Christianity. So it's very important that we come into Israel humbly, that we recognize that there's a history here of abuse towards the Jewish people, of persecution, horrible persecution. When the Crusaders came in, they were Christians. They had a cross on their shield, right? They said, kiss the cross or die. And they slaughtered thousands and thousands of Jewish people. The Inquisition, the pogroms, all these had a Christian foundation, a basis that they were going off of. And again, we might say, well, those weren't real Christians, but they did it in the name of Jesus, in the name of Yeshua. Even up as recent as the Holocaust, right? There were German Christians singing hymns while they were incinerating Jews by the thousands in the gas chambers of the concentration camps. There's just horrible, horrible, horrible things that were done, and we can't ignore that. When we come in and follow that Genesis 12 mandate to bless Israel, we have to acknowledge this and recognize that we have to come in humbly as we come in to bless Israel. And I want to represent that humbly by this willow branch. Obviously, a humble tree, actually eucalyptus, but like a willow, it kind of hangs down, more humble kind of thing. So we'll put that here so we can remember the H in hugs. Humility. We have to come in with humility. All right, so then the next thing is the U, is the unload. All right. So I think a lot of times when Christians come into Israel and they're trying to bless Israel, they come in with a lot of baggage. They got a lot of stuff that's kind of on them, think like Pilgrim's Progress, Christians, he's coming in and he's got this heavy burden. He's coming up to the cross, right? Things like that. We got this heavy burden on us. And we come in and we're like, hey, we're just loaded for bear. We've got everything all figured out. We've got all of our theology. We've got everything that we know what we're doing. And but unfortunately, this bag is full of replacement theology and anti-Semitism that we've built up over the 2,000 years. And so it's very, very critical that we unload, that we drop all of that baggage from the past. That we unload it, get rid of it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to bless Israel. If we come in with our guns loaded, like, hey guys, we know what we're doing, and we're gonna influence you, we're gonna change you, we're gonna do all these things to you, and like we've got it all figured out, that is not humble, and we need to unload those things. Any remnants of replacement theology. And I know some of you guys are probably listening and going, well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love the Jewish people. Or I don't believe in replacement theology. But I think what I've understood after being here in the land of Israel for 20 years is that it's not like, of course, I've rejected those things. But there's little remnants of replacement theology. One really clear example would be there's a very judgmental attitude towards the Jewish people. We'll see them following some of their Torah commandments from the Bible, and we'll judge them. We'll say, oh, these guys, they're like the Pharisees. They're doing this, they're doing that. And there's a very judgmental attitude. Well, a lot of times that can actually be anti-Semitic. Why are we judging them? That's not loving, right? That's judgmental towards God's chosen people. And what right do we have to tell them that they shouldn't be observing the commandments that God gave them in his word, right? So that could be an area. And I noticed that within me. When I first came out, why are they not turning on and off lights on Shabbat? That's ridiculous. But then actually, when I got to know them, I actually talked to the Jewish people and said, hey, why don't you turn on lights on Shabbat? And they said, well, in the creation story, God created the world in 6 days. The seventh day he rested. On the first day, he said, let there be light, turn the lights on. And then the seventh day he rested from all his work which he had done. And so we don't turn lights on. And I thought, oh, how arrogant of me to have thought that, be judgmental toward them when actually they have a very good biblical base for what they're doing. So we need to unload that stuff, right? Get rid of the replacement theology, get rid of anti-Semitism. Okay, so then the last two things are give and serve. So give would be bestowing a material gift upon another. So it could be, money, giving donations. That is a very good way to bless Israel. And then serving would be filling a need by a physical action, right? Actually doing something with your hands or doing a physical action. So you have those kind of two things, giving and serving. And our last two things on hugs. All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 23 actually gives us some insight into how to bless Israel in this way. In Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 3, it says, an Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt. And because they hired against you Balaam, the son of Beor from Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse you. So these non-Jews did not bless Israel, and because of that, they were unable to enter into the presence of God. Well, that's like a massive punishment, right? You can't enter the presence of God because you didn't bring food and water to Israel when they were on their way up out of the exile into the promised land. All right, I think many of us today believe we're seeing the greater exodus take place, right? And so this is very relevant to us. How can we give bread and water to the Jewish people? And what was the second thing? is they hired Balaam to curse Israel. So basically, they hired Balaam to speak fake news about Israel. How much propaganda and craziness are we seeing going on in today's world against Israel? This exact same thing, all right? So non-Jews blessing Israel in material ways is a really big deal to God. And actually in the New Testament, in Romans chapter 15, actually mentions the very same thing. Paul writes in verse 27, he says, "For if the Gentiles have been partakers of the Jewish people, spiritual things, their duty is also to minister to them in material things." So here again, we see that Gentiles physically blessing Israel is something on God's heart. All right, so I want to take a look at one more passage of scripture in Matthew chapter 25, and starting in verse 31, it says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him," so this is clearly talking about the second coming. And according to Zechariah 14 and Acts chapter 1, this is going to take place in Jerusalem, at the Mount of Olives. And the verse continues, "Then he will sit on the throne of his glory." So that's on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And verse 32, "And all the nations will be gathered before him." Now, the nations is a common phrase throughout the Bible that refers to all of the non-Jews. So you get the picture here. Yeshua, Jesus, returns to earth. He's sitting with his people, the Jewish people, his brothers, on his throne in Jerusalem, and all the nations outside of Israel are being brought in to be judged. Okay, so back there to verse 32, "All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, 'Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink.'" What does that remind you of? We talked about in Deuteronomy, the passage about bread and water to Israel. Here's the nations. How did the nations respond to the people of Israel? "When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And then the passage goes on to say that the righteous ask him, "Wait a second, well, when did we do these things for you?" And I can just imagine, the Corrie ten Booms, all these people are like, "Wait, I would have recognized you for sure. When did we do this for you?" In verse 40, "And the king will answer and say to them, Surely I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me." So in context, it's very clear that Yeshua is speaking about his brothers, the Jewish people. So this is directly connected back to Genesis 12, "Oh, bless those who bless you," to Deuteronomy 23, bread and water, to Romans 15, about giving materially, since we've gained spiritually from the Jewish people, and many other passages that we don't have time to get into today. So yes, according to the scripture, it's our God-given mandate as non-Jews to bring physical, material blessings to the Jewish people. It's very, very important, something that God has given us to do as people from the nation. So whether it's giving donations, and I know sometimes it's tricky, it's sticky, talking about money. It's like, oh, you're talking about money. I'm reading you out from the Bible, right? When we bless Israel with our donations, when we give these things to Israel, then God will bless us, and it will be a part of bringing the redemption, reconciliation to the world. That's what we're all about. We're about seeing God's kingdom being built on earth as it is in heaven. So whether it's giving, service, putting your hands to the plow and getting something done in service, or giving financially, these are ways that we can be part of this greater exodus that's taken place, getting the Jewish people back into their land, seeing Israel be reborn. Here, it's a major, major, significant thing on God's heart. So may God continue to bless you as you bless Israel, and as you seek him on how you can align yourself with his heart for Israel and be a part of the restoration of all things. May God bless you from the Mount of Blessing. Shalom, shalom.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching that video. If you'd like to check out the work that our organization is doing in Israel, you can go to operationetai.com. The link is down in the description below. We are located in Israel's biblical heartland, and we are launched an emergency campaign to airlift supplies and equipment from all over the world that are designated for the Jewish communities and small farms in Judea and Samaria, because so much of the IDF, including many of the reserves, and those reserves are people who live here, They've been called to Israel's northern and southern fronts. Now, the 500,000 Jewish people who live in Judea and Samaria, 125,000 of them, by the way, are under the age of 14, are spread very thin, and they're inadequately equipped to defend their homes and communities and farms against the 2 million Arabs who live here, many of them who openly support Hamas. The imams in the mosque were even openly calling for genocide under the directive of the Palestinian Authority just this past week. So our mission is to bring supplies and equipment in Judea and Samaria. We're talking about protective vests, night vision, binoculars, flashlights, helmets, things like that, to equip and defend and protect the small Jewish communities and the small farms that are located in Judea and Samaria. Ittai was a man from the nations who came to Israel, stood with King David in the midst of one of his greatest crises. So today, Christian Zionists from the nations can also stand with Israel during their greatest crisis. Please go to operationittai.com. The link is down in the description below. Thank you so much for standing and supporting Israel today.